Hello, welcome to the FOXHOLE Feed EP024. Been out for a little bit, a couple days. Decided to change up the format. Starting Friday on episode 25, we're going to be doing our news feed, and it's going to be a roundup of the entire week, but only on one episode a week, starting on Friday, which is going to be 25. So this week you're still going to get 2 episodes. Not 5. Had some things I had to take care of on Monday and Tuesday, legal stuff, work related other stuff outside of what I normally do with this. So yeah, still going to be taking care of the news, still going to be interjecting all of my thoughts on the news that happens throughout the week. Just going to try to sum it up into one episode. I got a great response with the Paris Games Week, day 0. Got lots of great comments, great emails, and thanks so much for that too. But I definitely want to continue to have better quality and have the episodes have, I would say, much more meaning into having an episode compiled of a week. I can't do 2 episodes of man news. I'd rather have a 40-minute episode where it was chock full of news. I enjoyed doing that episode. On top of I enjoyed reading all the news that came about that day and those couple days when leading up to it. So now that's out of the way, let's get through with some news that has happened in the last 5-6 days or so. Now, WiseNet, which is essentially the company that's creating Shenmue 3, the developer that's creating Shenmue 3, released some really good screenshots not too long ago. One of them in the corner of the screen over here shows like Rio, and it shows like him fighting some dude or getting ready to fight some dude. The lighting looks really good. As you may see, this game is actually running on Unreal Engine 4. Next screen that they show in the corner over here, you'll see it's like a house. So they're sort of showing like this is the actual hut that he trains with his brother Fuchs on in, and the actual hut where his father dies from Len Dion in the actual beginning of the first Shenmue title. I guess I'm not even sure if this was done specifically for, technical demonstration, or if it's going to be in the exact same city as the very first game in terms of redoing the entire city. So yeah, they sort of show you some different screens here of like showing Rio fighting the other guy, but in a completely different like setting. I guess they're playing with lighting. Let me give you some little bit of information regarding what they've been working on as of yet. So we're going to explain the progress that they've been happening with the game's story. Its scenario are now in its planning stages, while the rest of the team is doing technical stuff. Now, the development that they're showing here is sort of map testing stuff. So they're testing it out to see how different areas feel. They say they don't want areas that are either too big, but they also don't want areas that are too small as well. So they want to feel out an area to say that, let's say if you walk around it and it feels like it's too open, as they state, they said the space may be reduced by 20% or so, and they'll add more people to add consistency and diversity to the area. As anybody may know, Shenmue is very dense game, huge population of like people, and you are kind of, I would say, in a city which is a little bit crowded. So I think they want to try to mimic what they did in 1999 with today's standards of technology, which is, I think, is a great idea for them to do, and not try to go the huge open, GTA type route of nothingness. They're still trying to captivate the concept of what Shenmue is. I think that's a great idea that they do that. So they say they have objects that are being used as placeholders, like they're still actually, working on those things. So if anybody sees screenshots of like dudes in black suits, they're stating that these are older models, and the backgrounds and buildings are still in development stages, and these shots probably aren't going to represent the final product. So this is more to test out the overall layout and concept, not necessarily what you expect in the very final game. Now, in some development news, or more in some pre-order news, not necessarily development news, The Division is going to be getting a beta. Semi-development news. I don't even understand why they're... I guess I could get why they're doing a beta. We had an entire beta podcast about like a week or 2 weeks ago regarding the importance of them. Now, the Division is going to be getting a beta, but only for those that necessarily pre-order. It's going to be a closed beta access. It's going to give you a hazmat gear set for DLC. How that plays into the actual game, I'm not really sure. They don't really talk much about the whole meltdown and the whole virus that was killing people. They don't really talk much about it. And I think it's because the game itself is not necessarily about the virus as much as it's just about the after effects after the fact. It's like sort of like how Fallout really isn't about how it happened. It's just that it, just sort of happened. So that seems to be what they're doing with the Division. So you're going to get beta access, closed beta access. No date revealed on when this actual beta is going to start. Clearly, best assumption would be before the game comes out. I don't even think anytime this year, that would have been a big announcement for them to make at E3 if it really was the ending of this year. My guess might probably be a month or so before the game actually releases. If they could even fix the issues that might arise in time, I don't even know if they could fix some of those issues. I think a majority of the issues they probably could fix, but some of the more major issues, I think many probably expect a little bit after release to be fixed or, treated. This game is going to be coming out March 8th, 2016. It's going to be coming out on PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. So yeah, look out for that. Look out for that fancy pre-order beta. Now, in some very, very recent news, as of like last day or two, many people have been getting leaked versions of Fallout. So some pleasant NeoGAF users have been essentially showing off pictures of Fallout 4. So they got leaked copies of Fallout 4, leaked through retail, which is usually it's usually an issue that happens fast and often in retail in terms of somebody got a copy and they're playing it. I mean, these games don't just ship on the very day they release. They've clearly already been shipped like a week, 2 weeks or so before the game actually really comes out. So I mean, people are going to get their hands on copies. I know lots of my RPG buddies are looking forward to Fallout 4, so no spoilers. I'm not going to reveal anything, and I myself haven't really even looked too much at any of the screenshots. And in fact, I'm only posting one screenshot in the corner, just simply out of courtesy. It's not even a spoiler screenshot. Nothing really in it is any spoiler things going on. So what is mentioned is draw distance is sort of mentioned. The draw distance is actually greater in the final version than the E3 build. So it's nothing that's going to hurt the game. The only strange issue is that there's no shadows, which I think is actually going to be fixed in like a day one patch. So yeah, other than that, they're just, some screenshots showing some landscapes, some location. It looks exactly the way that we've already seen it. There's nothing really that different about it. Even the pictures that I'm sort of seeing before and afters of, I mean, you would also have to consider they may not be the exact time of day or even the same exact, position that the last ones are in. So they're not the best before and afters, I would say. Now, some more news coming from NeoGAF. NeoGAF's always spreading out some. They're always spreading out some leaks. So, leaked thus far is that From Software could be making not one, but two other PlayStation 4 JRPGs. Now, it's stated that From Software, is making exclusive currently for PlayStation 4. It's going to be a Sony-published first-party title, and it's going to be like Bloodborne, and it's going to be a JRPG. It goes on further to state that there's another project in development similar in context, which is also a JRPG, which is also going to be a Sony published title. And he says beyond that, he doesn't want to, devolve anything more, as to state that, it's not really something until it's something. Anything could happen between now and, when it actually officially gets announced, released, or whatever. Saying that it's been quite a while since From Software has developed a proper Japanese RPG, or traditional, I would say, and last being Enchanted Arms that released mixed reviews 2007 or so. So it sounds like they're possibly making a sequel to Demon Souls. They could also just be making a sequel to Bloodborne. In fact, they could just be doing another piece of DLC for it. I mean, they could be working on stuff, and the stuff they're working on may not even be full games as much as their expansions. So even though I don't think that's the case, not ruling anything out regarding what it possibly could be. In other news, I would like to talk about a little comment made by Warren Spector regarding Naughty Dog and regarding, the Uncharted series. Now, Warren Spector, he's as big as a creator, director in PC gaming as really anyone. I don't even know if there's anyone I can compare him to in PC gaming, to be honest with you. He's like the Yu Suzuki of PC gaming, where Yu Suzuki did for console gaming, where he created Hang On and all these, amazing series, from tennis to like fighting games to like, racing to all these, to Shenmue and all these different type of genres. He was very much like everywhere. Spector, in the same respect for PC, was, a little bit everywhere, but, contributed deeply to the PC, community with games like Wing Commander and Ultima the RPG and Thief, and of course my favorite being Deus Ex, and System Shock, which is essentially it's the precursor to BioShock, where BioShock essentially exists because of System Shock's existence. And also Epic Mickey. We don't really talk about Epic Mickey, but still he has a great career, and he makes some comments regarding Uncharted, and he makes some comments regarding other titles like Heavy Rain and The Last of Us, and he talks about just generalizes some of these games. And he says that it's not that these games are bad. He says merely that they limit the ability to interact with the game world so the story could unfold the way the storyteller wants it to unfold. So he says this, but I mean, that's sort of the point of some of these games like Uncharted or The Last of Us, in which, there is a specific set arc and they're trying to tell you a specific story. It's not necessarily about you just walking around the game world and doing these things. That's never what that series was ever about, or games like that were never really about those type of series. Now, he says you have a very limited ability to express yourself. It's about how do you want to accomplish, a predetermined path to get to the next point. He says it's a great story, a better story than he'll ever tell. He says, but it's not the player's story. It's not your story, as if to, talk about the, I guess, limited interaction that the player has to change those choices, like you could do in Deus Ex, in terms of changing choices and in terms of making specific decisions and adding to what the story would be. You can't really do that in those titles. So regarding other titles like The Walking Dead, he says he loves The Walking Dead. He says, but the choices they have you make, they're compelling choices. He says they're designer driven, they're not player driven. And he states that the choices in the game have been pre-scripted and handwritten and, a whole bunch of other mess. Like Warren Spector a lot, I have great respect for this person, deeply, deeply, deeply. If he did for me for gaming what Kojima did for me for console gaming. And I don't necessarily agree with what he's saying in this regard. Yes, you have games that are like, Deus Ex, and you have games that are like The Walking Dead, or you have games that are like Heavy Rain, or you have games where you could make a decision and these things and these outcomes happen based on the decisions that you've made. But every game doesn't necessarily need to be that way. Like, he says this, but it's like, well, you're making these comments, regarding, Uncharted, in terms of having, criticism towards the team's storytelling, and that you can't really change what Drake does, or you don't really have control over the things that happen thereafter. But who cares? I mean, that's not necessarily what they're aiming for. That's not what the genre is. The genre is not some open-ended RPG where there's like a trillion choices at the end. That's not really what that title is. So this is one of those things where this is just a difference of genre. This has nothing to do with one game being lesser or greater, or one game doing it right or one game doing it wrong. It's just the difference between being completely different games. So I do not agree with the way Warren Spector was sort of like going at them, because I think he had this idea where the storytelling in the medium could be done a different way. It can be done a different way. It all doesn't need to be done the same way. Let's say we do find a really successful method of storytelling that lets the actions of the player, dictate the world. Let's say we successfully create some modular world where every single NPC has a home they go to, they have a job they do, they all have some set thing that's supposed to happen to them, and when you enter this world and you do certain things, you change the outcome of what was going to happen to them in a modular setting, not in some predetermined, scripted setting, in a real modular setting. I mean, that would be really awesome if somebody really, really did do something like that. But at the end of the day, I mean, pre-scripted games are still good. It's like trying to say, well, I love the randomness of reality shows. You could like the randomness of reality shows, but you could still like a scripted film. So I don't agree with what he's saying, because it's not a one-size-fits-all in terms of game development. Now, Naughty Dog, responds to this in terms of, coming to the defense of their own studio. I don't think they'd like to hear somebody as respected as Warren Spector making the comments that he's actually making. So one of their community strategists, his name is Arnie Mayer, goes out and states, defends the team to, in response of Spector's comments. He says, right now the industry, we have such a great opportunity to create many different type of games, from blockbuster AAA games for indie studios, to address every different type of gameplay style that you want to play or that you could play in a game. He says it's great that we're hearing this type of criticism towards all sorts of games, because people are starting to make games that let you explore all different sorts of different genres. And he's correct. They're letting you explore all these different genres, so you're at a time in the game industry where you're free to create that game if you fucking felt like it. But there's no reason to try to tell everybody else that they need to sort of all, jump on board and make a game the same way. I play games with the understanding that I know that, something that I'm doing in a Fallout, which might have huge, implications to other stuff that happens later on in the game. Let's say in terms of nuking a town or something, or making a decision that, kills a bunch of people. Yeah, I know that, there are cool decisions that happen from that. That doesn't make me hate The Last of Us. That doesn't make me hate something like Metal Gear Solid. Some of the best games I've ever played have given me the choice to do something that changes something else, and it gives you just cool and, amount of replayability. And a lot of the games that I've ever played, that I would still consider the greatest games I've ever played in my life, were all 100% scripted. You had no say in it. At the end of the day, when I play Metal Gear Solid 3, I'm playing it because I want to see the choices that Big Boss makes unfold while I'm playing the game. And when I play something like Fallout, I want to see the choices that I make in playing the game. But that's not saying I want both of them to be the same thing. In no way do I want them to be the same thing. This goes back to what I was just saying. This is almost like if you were to say you like reality shows versus other scripted shows. I mean, that's nice. You can like that, but that doesn't necessarily mean one needs to be the other. So, end this off. He says, I think people are really starting to think about these things and what more they could do with games, because there are all these games that are out there that are appealing to different genres, play styles, and I think that's what's really special about the industry right now. So I agree with, what Naughty Dog is saying regarding this, because it's true. There are different play styles, there are different genres. You're always going to have something that's going to be, here's a scripted story, and you're going to have lots of games that here's a modular story that is told in a way where you doing different things makes the story change and different results happen with the NPCs. You're going to have that, and that's okay. So a lot of shit went down. A lot of shit went down regarding that. I wasn't too fond of what Warren Spector said, even though I respect his opinion. I don't know if I was too happy with how he was going about these other game stories. It's all good. You got stories that are scripted that are amazing. You got stories that are not as scripted that are just as amazing, to be honest with you. Now, the very talented group at Ready at Dawn, the team that created the Order 1886, Ready at Dawn also worked on, I believe, the God of War games for the PSP. I might be missing something by this team that they've done, but to my understanding, I only know them from doing the God of War PSP games. They might have ported some titles here and there, but I know them for God of War, the handheld God of War titles. And I know them for the Order 1886. Now, the team is teasing that they are hiring and working on multiple exciting projects. And this is them sort of teasing what they might do, but this is 100% confirmed by the team that they are hiring and they are, working on a project by the actual tweets of the developers themselves. So they state more than one project in the works, very different, exciting, and you'll see. So they're stating very different, so it's not, upon existing IPs. It's nothing that's, how can I say it? It's nothing of existing. The fact that they're saying different sounds like it's nothing of existing, so it's actually doubtful it's a sequel to the Order 1886. I'm not really holding my breath for that team doing a sequel for it. I mean, Sony might get another team to do it. But the way this team is talking, I don't believe that sequel is up to cards. I mean, unless they're saving something for, another E3, or unless they're saving that is news. I mean, we don't really get teams that just openly tell you, like, yeah, this is a game we're making. There's only sometimes we sort of get that. I mean, Sony of Santa Monica has once come out and just, straight up said, yeah, we are working on another God of War game. They did that about a year or so ago with God of War 4, that they just, flat out confirmed, yeah, working on a God of War game for PlayStation 4, and just left it at that. So, I mean, maybe they're not as transparent. Maybe they want to leave it as a surprise if that's the case. If it's not, still good to see what this team is working on. Their first console game outing did not go too well with The Order. Hopefully they'll find great success with what other title they do. I personally like The Order, and I personally was okay with how it released. I was okay with the title itself. Now, to end it off, I'm of course going to remind you guys of the PlayStation Experience that's going to be coming in December 5th and 6th. I'm always out there trying to make sure you guys know, yeah, this is where you guys can see these press events when you feel like it. So they're going to be having the PlayStation Experience later next month. Keep forgetting that it's December, or excuse me, it's November right now. So yeah, it's going to be coming in about a month or so, almost going to be a month to the day it's going to be coming out in December 5th and 6th. Just to remind people how big the event could be. Last year they announced Street Fighter V there. So they're not really, I don't think they're going to hold any punches back. They could potentially announce anything they feel like it at this event. And I know coming off of Sony Paris Games Week, them announcing Kira, which was the tech demo on PlayStation 3 to be a game called Detroit. So, or announcing Gran Turismo. I mean, them announcing huge titles at Paris Game Show might make people question if Paris, if their, PlayStation Experience is going to be anything major, huge. I don't really put them on not showing anything major. I mean, it could go either way. They could really saved a lot of the biggest and best for Paris, and just have December just to be the month where they just show playable content, or they could have other announcements. I mean, they still have studios that are in the dark still. I know Sucker Punch is still working on their brand new IP that is probably going to be announced, as they confirmed it is something not like Infamous. Sony Bend, as I talked about from the leak from NeoGAF of being a horror game. I mean, there's lots of stuff that they could potentially announce. So I don't hold them to not do something major. It's hard to say that, okay, maybe they won't do anything, and then they do something major, and I'm like, I sort of had a feeling they're going to do that. I mean, it's difficult. Now, this article, Jim Ryan, which is Sony's European boss dude, now he states that, he says, I'm sure there will be a few surprises at PlayStation Experience. So he says this, and so we don't really know what these surprises are going to be. Could be brand new games. They could merely just be being able to play certain games. So these surprises, they're not going to go into deep detail about what it's going to be. So, when he's talking to Eurogamer regarding this, he makes a point to talk about David Cage's Detroit game and about games like, Detroit and Heavy Rain. And, he makes a point to say, it's nice to see the different sorts of this type of stuff on the platform, and David Cage brings that. I love Heavy Rain. That's my kind of game, and I think I think as an industry, as development risk becomes greater, there's a risk that we're recycling low risk annual iterations. Now, earlier this year, I recall Sony's boss Shuhei Yoshida state that he doesn't necessarily like yearly titles like Call of Duty or like Assassin's Creed, and he doesn't necessarily like the, you know, bringing of them out the way they release every single year. Even though it's you know, they're still buddy with third party, he's still vocally trying to say that them as a company are not looking to completely milk IPs to death and, you know, release them year after year after year after year. I think he's trying to, you know, have some sort of stability within the industry or within their own publishing house to say that we can't just continue to do this over and over and over again. And I think many people who are fans of the publisher have kind of already known this. I mean, everybody has an idea that that's what happens with this publisher, is that when these games come out, that no one's really sitting there expecting it to just be one game. Everybody's expecting it to be the start of a series, because it was the way it was with Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter. It's the way it was with Infamous and you know, Uncharted. You know, so of course everybody's expecting Horizon, The Order. They're expecting those series, those titles to be series. They're expecting them to be franchises because of the history of that this company has shown to really doing titles like that. So I think they want to minimize that risk, but they still want to be able to come out with, take that risk on new IP, because if they ever took a risk on something like The Last of Us or Uncharted, we never would have had multi-million-dollar selling games. And The Last of Us, to my understanding, is actually doing better than Uncharted. So yeah, it could be anything that they're going to show off at this game show. I did like that. You know, Jim Ryan stated that to Eurogamer. I thought that was great to show that them as publishers are still looking to release brand new stuff and still release stuff that they know could be risk. They took the risk with The Order, and not a lot of people like that. So, you know, they kind of took that same risk with titles like Until Dawn, and that's, you know, that goes to show you that, of course, it's difficult for them to do that, knowing that, you know, you could end up with a title that's being praised across the board, or you could end up with a title just completely being slandered by all the, you know, journalists everywhere. It's just the way it is. They're now talking about wanting to do a sequel of Until Dawn. As early as this, they're already stating that they're already, you know, in talks to make a sequel. Yet, you know, titles like The Order are already being written off as they're probably not going to do one. It's just the way the industry is. But I personally would rather applaud a publisher for taking the risk to do it than never doing it at all. So this has been another episode of the Foxhole Feed, episode 24. You guys stay tuned for episode 25 on Friday. Like I stated in the beginning of this podcast, or this newscast, stay tuned for my episodes to come only exclusively on Friday, and I'm going to take all the news that came from the weekend prior and during the week and mash it into one big news story. Want to preserve quality, want us to have something that you're able to come once a week to hear everything that happened. I know everybody cannot just go you know, throughout the entire week and listen to every single last thing that's going on. You know, the point of this is to take all those news stories and put them into one place versus become those news stories that have to be difficult to track down and find out. I don't want that. So it's been episode 24 of the Foxhole Feed. Stay tuned for episode 25, and yeah, that's game.